I'm John Channing with Campbellsville University, and welcome once again to Dialogue on Public Issues. Today I'm very pleased to be hosting a gentleman by the name of Daryl Davis and discussing some topics of great interest and great concern that I think will be beneficial to you as our audience and to our community and region. Mr. Davis, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Very interesting background.
Well, let's see. I'll be 62 years of age next month.
Mm-hmm.
But growing up, I was a child of parents in the U.S. Foreign Service. So I spent a lot of time overseas back in the 1960s, started in 1961 at the age of 3. And you go to a country, you're there for 2 years, and then you come back home, get debriefed, and get reassigned to another country. So that was my life during my formative years. And I went on to go to college and get my degree in music. And today I'm a professional musician, touring around this country and around the world. But while music is my profession, studying race relations has been my obsession, for decades.
Yes.
And I've been at this now for about 34 years, meeting and getting together with people whose views may not align with mine. Such people as the Ku Klux Klan, neo-Nazis, the alt-right, people like that.
Now, you, as you noted, and one article described you as, quote, an author, actor, lecturer, and blues musician, and certainly an interesting and rich career. Some highlights of that career, things that really stand out in your career.
The music career?
Yes, I think that would be interesting to our
Well,
audience.
probably one of the most, I've done a lot of significant things with a lot of significant superstars, not me, but other people. But I spent 32 years on and off playing piano for the man who invented rock and roll, Chuck Berry.
Wow.
Without Chuck Berry, we would not have Elvis Presley,
Right.
the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Elton John. Anybody who plays rock music, all their DNA goes back to Chuck Berry. And worked with the legendary Pine Top Perkins and Johnny Johnson, the legendary rock and roll, blues, boogie-woogie pianist, which is where rock and roll and rockabilly came from.
Very good. Now, are you going to be performing any music while you're here?
I believe so. I believe they might have a keyboard on stage.
Maybe that might have been the more appealing. I could have just introduced you and then put you at the piano and keyboard and let you go.
Let my fingers do the talking.
Absolutely. My viewership would have gone up tremendously, I'm sure.
We'll plan that for next time.
Okay, very good. I'll take you up on that. Now, how did you move from blues musician and those related career involvements into the area of race relations, and specifically to becoming involved in discussion with white supremacists? And I use that term in a very broad sense.
Right. Okay, well, first, I don't only play blues. I play a lot of different styles. My degree was in jazz, but I play rock and roll, country, blues, R&B, whatever. But when I was 10 years old, I had an incident while I was in the Cub Scouts in Massachusetts. And I was the only black scout participating in this parade with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, Brownies, 4-H Club, and other organizations. We were marching from Lexington to Concord, Mass, to commemorate the ride of Paul Revere.
Yes.
And as I said, I was the only black scout participating, and people were cheering us and yelling the British are coming, and everybody's having a good time. We reached a certain point along the parade route where suddenly I was getting hit with bottles and rocks and soda pop cans by just a small group of the white spectators gathered in the crowd. I remember it being a couple kids and a couple adults throwing things. And me being naive and having had no precedent for this kind of behavior, my first assumption was, oh, those people over there don't like the Scouts. I didn't realize I was the only Scout getting hit until my den mother, my Cub master, and troop leader all came rushing over and escorted me out of the danger, protecting me with their own bodies. And I kept asking, well, I didn't do anything, I didn't say anything, why are they doing this to me? All they would say is, shh, move along, Daryl, move along. It'll be okay. I never understood it. When I got home, my mother and father, who were not in attendance to this march, were fixing me up with mercurochrome and Band-Aids and asking me, how did I fall down and get all scraped up? And I explained to them, I didn't fall down. I told them exactly what had happened. And they sat me down for the first time in my life, age 10, 1968. and explained to me what racism was. And believe it or not, at the age of 10, I had never heard the word racism. I had no clue what they were talking about. I got along with everybody all over the world, you know. So I did not believe my parents because my 10-year-old brain could not wrap itself around the concept that somebody who had never seen me, never spoken to me, knew absolutely nothing about me would want to hurt me for no other reason than the color of my skin. It just made no sense. And I got along with plenty of people who looked like the people who were doing this. So it wasn't adding up. I didn't believe my parents. Well, about a month and a half later, that same year, April the 4th, 68, Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Yes.
And every major city in this country burned to the ground with violence and destruction, all in the name of this new word that I had learned called racism. So then I realized this phenomenon does exist, but I didn't know why. Why do people dislike you because of the color of your skin? So at that age, I formed a question in my mind, which was, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And for the next 51 years, I've been looking for the answer to that question. So skipping ahead, I graduate college, I'm making my career in music, I'm playing in a band, in a bar, and I just finished playing a set of music in this all-white band, all-white bar. And a gentleman comes up to me and tells me that this was the first time he'd ever seen a black man play piano like Jerry Lee Lewis. And I looked at him, I was not offended, but I was taken aback that this man who was older than me did not know the black origin of Jerry Lee Lewis's style of piano playing. And I proceeded to explain to him that that style came from black boogie woogie and blues piano players. That's where rock and roll and rockabilly came from. He was incredulous. He didn't believe that. He didn't believe that Jerry Lee learned anything from black people. I said, look, man, I know Jerry Lee Lewis. He's a friend of mine. He's told me himself. He didn't believe that either. But he was fascinated with me and wanted to buy me a drink. I don't drink, but I had a cranberry juice with him. So he gets my cranberry juice, he clinks my glass, and then he says, you know, this is the first time I ever sat down and had a drink with a black man. And now I'm like really curious, like what's going on here? Because I had sat down at this point in my life with thousands of white people or anybody else and had a meal, a beverage, a conversation. How is it that this man had never done that? And I asked him, and at first he did not answer me. He stared at the tabletop, and I asked him again, and his buddy said, tell him, tell him, tell him. I said, tell me. He looked back at me just as plain as day, and he said, I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan. And I burst out laughing because now I did not believe him.
Right.
I knew a lot about the Klan, and they don't just come up to you and put their arm around you and praise your piano playing and want to hang out and buy you a drink. So I was not believing him. He went inside his pocket, produced his wallet, and handed me his Klan card. And I recognized the Klan insignia, the red circle, white cross, and blood drop. And I, whoa, this thing is for real. So I stopped laughing and I gave it back to him. And it didn't occur to me that night, because it just happened, all kind of surprise fell in my lap.
Right.
But much later, it dawned on me, Daryl, the answer that's been to your question that's been plaguing you since the age of 10, how can you hate me when you don't even know me, fell right into your lap. Because nobody had been able to answer that question for me. So I figured, who better to ask than someone who would go so far as to join an organization whose whole premise for over 100 years has been practicing hating people who don't look like them or who don't believe as they believe. I should get back in contact with that guy and have him fix me up with the leader of the Klan for the state of Maryland where I was living. And I'll interview the guy, then I'll go around the country, interview different Klan leaders and members, and I'll write a book about it. So that's how it started.
It's fascinating. In one quote that I read in preparing for this interview, you stated, quote, music absolutely played a massive role in bridging many gaps in the racial divide I would encounter. Explain what you mean by that, and you've touched on it already.
Sure. I
how
mean,
it opened up opportunities.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody likes music, even the Klan, you know? So if you were to go to, let's say, a banker's party, most of the people there at that party are going to be tellers, branch managers, bank auditors, you know, that kind of thing, CPAs, all that kind of thing. You go to a computer person's party, there's going to be other computer people, hardware, software, IT, sales. But you go to a place that has music, whether it's a nightclub, a concert, a festival, a dance, everybody's going to be there. The computer programmer, the restaurateur, a school teacher, the person who picks up your trash on Saturday mornings, the person who paints the W yellow line down the street, they're all going to be there. And so music draws people together. And it was the music that attracted this Klansman to cause him to get up out of his seat and come over to this black guy and talk to him about Jerry Lee Lewis. So music brought us together. And over time, he and I became very good friends.
Did you get an answer, a satisfactory answer to that question? How can you hate me when you don't even know me?
I got two answers to it. Okay. The initial answer, now, I mean, I would interview Klan people all over the country, and I would always ask that question. And I would get two answers in return, not back to back, but over a period of time. The first answer was because I'm inferior. Black people are prone to crime. Black people are criminals. That is why there are more black people in prison than white people. Now, that's a half-truth. There are definitely more black people in prison than white people. But it's not because we're prone to crime.
Right.
It's because of an inequitable judicial system. But they see the result. So one's perspective is one's reality, right? Then I'm told that black people are lazy. We want to scam the government welfare system because we don't want to work. And I'm told that black people have smaller brains than white people, which points to our lower IQ. So most people, you know, when you hear that kind of thing, is it, you know, and I'm sitting as close as you and I are right now to this Klan leader that I'm interviewing, who's telling me this about myself. Is what he's saying offensive? Absolutely, it's offensive.
Sure.
Was I offended? Absolutely not. Not because he was telling the truth, but because why would I be offended by a lie? This guy just met me. All he sees is my skin color, and he's going to make these assessments about me. Why should I believe that? He knows nothing about me. And if I were to believe it and react to it, then I would be giving credibility to what he's telling me. I would be empowering his thoughts. So I let him finish, and then I inform him, you know what? I've never had a criminal record. I have never been on welfare. I've never measured my brain, but I'm sure it's the same size as anybody else's. So, you know, and that kind of, you know, shuts them up a little bit. But those are the reasons why they hate somebody. And then later on, it may be months later, it may be years later, when that light bulb pops on in their head and they realize they've been wrong. And because we've found more things in common and we've grown from being extreme to a relationship to a friendship, the answer changes. Daryl, I don't know why I hated you. I'm sorry. I don't hate you. And they give up that ideology, and I end up with their Robin Hood.
So they give up their that extreme ideology after a period of time.
Exactly.
Now, take those lessons that you have encountered with numerous members of the Ku Klux Klan, neo-Nazi groups, other white supremacist groups. How can we take those lessons and apply them to the greater community? And answer that, and then I want to follow up.
Okay. The key is dialogue, civil discourse. In this country, we spend way too much time talking about the other person, talking at the other person, or talking past the other person. What I've chosen to do, which I have found to be most effective, is to spend a little bit of time talking with the other person. Understand who you are. Only you can define yourself, or your parents can define you because they know you, not somebody who just walked in the door and starts making assessments about you based on the color of your skin. let that stuff fly by you. Okay, you know who you are. You know, if you have low self-esteem, then you have no business being in the room with that person because they will rip you apart. All right. So let all that kind of stuff fly. Let them get it out and have these conversations civilly. And when you do this, you find that they want the same things you want. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be respected. Everybody wants to be treated properly. Everybody wants to be heard. Okay? So they have opinions that they want to express, regardless of how you may feel about those opinions. You don't have to respect what they say, but respect their right to say it. And when you do things like that, there's an excellent chance that they will reciprocate and give you a platform to explain yourself. And then you make sure that you have done your homework so that you can explain yourself and your platform in an intelligent and influential manner. Because at the end of the day, you each have to think about what the other person said. And that becomes more and more effective. And they begin to see you as a human being because you've treated them as one. And they begin to struggle with that ideology. You know, what Daryl said was right, but he's black. But he was right, but he's black. So it's a kind of a cognitive dissonance kind of thing going on. And then they have to reach this conclusion. Do I believe the truth and turn my life around, or do I continue living a lie? And that's their decision.
Obviously, with disparate opinions so sharply, with someone from a white supremacist perspective, the contrasts are sharp.
Yes.
And so the only way you can communicate successfully is to listen to each other and hopefully that person come over time to understand you or to understand whomever. How do you deal with those folks who are will tell you they don't have a prejudice bone in their body? We hear that a lot.
Yes.
In the majority culture.
Yes.
I'm not prejudiced. Some of my best friends are whatever group. But in that, sometimes there's some latent or benign racist connotations.
Yes.
An assumption, presumption, or even in some cases a statement that everything is okay.
Okay,
that we've overcome. You know, we fought the battles when you were a child and when I was a teenager, and Dr. King died, and everything's solved. We passed all the laws. President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Bill and the fair housing laws and court integrated education, so everything's okay.
And we got a black president.
And we had
so
President
now we're
Obama.
In a post-racial
absolutely, we're in a post-racial culture.
So
yet right now, go ahead.
So you're not racist because your best friend is black. Would you let your best friend marry your sister? That's the question I would ask.
Yeah.
And see how they answer.
Yeah. And when somebody, my experience has been, and again, we should not. I preached a sermon recently. I'm a minister, and it was in the context of just prejudice in general, not just on racial prejudice. But the word prejudice, the root word is prejudge. Prejudge, and I explained that. That means you come at something, you come at a group of people, you come at whatever is on the table for consideration with prejudgment, with or without facts. So in the context of race, we are prejudging that other person.
And you have what is ignorance and what is stupidity. And some people define that as being synonymous. For me, I don't. To me, an ignorant person is someone who makes the wrong choice or incorrect decision because he or she does not have the facts or the proper information to make the right choice. We can argue opinions all day long, but you cannot argue facts, right? A stupid person is someone who has the facts, who has the right information, and they still make the wrong choice. So, you can say, well, I think such and such. Well, what I think is an opinion. But if I tell you 2 + 2 is 4, that's a fact. So if I lay out these facts for you, then you have to make a decision whether you want to accept them or not. If they're facts, they're facts. So if you might walk into a kitchen one day and there's a pan on the stove. The stove's been turned off, but you don't realize that someone just turned the stove off 45 seconds ago, and you go to move that pan and you burn your hand because you didn't know the pan was hot. That's ignorance. Okay, you were unaware. You had no information on that pan. You were ignorant of the heat there, right? So you burned your hand. But if you come into the kitchen, now I'm standing there, I say, hey, by the way, don't fool with the pan. It's burning hot. I just turned the stove off. And then I leave, and you go over there and touch the pan, and you want to know why your hand is burned. It's because you're stupid. You had the facts. You had the information, and you disavowed it.
Right. And the science of the matter is that the Human Genome Project, we already knew that some of the old racial theories that were used to justify certain things were trash.
Right, and they came out again, the bell curve, right?
Right. But the Human Genome Project has for once and for all proven beyond any error that 99.99% of the DNA, human DNA, is the same.
Right.
The only difference
There's only one race.
Yeah, exactly.
Race is a man-made construct.
Yes, it is. It is.
So what we need to
There's
do is
some pigmentation differential. That's it.
Right, exactly. And what we need to do is to begin teaching this. You have to take it down a few notches, but begin teaching it in elementary school.
And kids given opportunity, children, we've all seen it. Our kids learn it.
Yes.
They learn the racist difference, the racial differences.
Right.
It's not inherent.
That's right.
It is not inherent.
And the good thing about that is, if it can be learned, it can be unlearned. Right.
Now, 50 years ago, today, 2020, are things as bad as they were then? There's a lot of debate about that. A lot of people are saying we're headed towards some really tough times. That right now is a tough time, in that race relations, and it's deeper than just race relations. But that is a valid point of discussion in our culture. Are our race relations in general receding at this point in time, do you think, in America?
Let me put it this way. We have come a very long ways.
Absolutely.
Slowly, but we have come along. We have progressed.
Yes.
All right. However, we still have a very long ways to go. Things are better today.
Yes.
But they're going to get worse. And I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you what people are not talking about. Because either they don't, a lot of people do know it, but the general public doesn't know it at all. This country was built on a two-tier society, white supremacy and slavery. And as we progressed over the years, we progressed like this. We did not progress like this. All right? So when I was a child, and you were a child, the black population in this country was 12%. Native Americans, a little bit less than 1%. Hispanics, 2 and 3%. Asians, 4%. Whites, 84, 86%.
Right.
All right? So the biggest nemesis for white supremacists were black people at 12%. That's way too much. All right? They weren't concerned with 1% Native American. 12%, that's way too much. Today, in 2020, black people remain 12%. We've not grown. Native Americans remain 1%. Asians are now at 6%. Hispanics have surpassed us. All right? I got 13% according to 2017 census. So if you just take black people at 12%, Hispanic people at 13%, that right there alone is 25% non-white.
Right.
This is happening. All right? And it's very well predicted that by 2042, which is 22 years from today, this country will be 50-50. For the first time in history, 50% white, 50% non-white. And shortly thereafter, it's going to flip, where whites become the minority. And while there are a lot of people, white, who embrace that and say, hey, that's just the norm, it's the cycle of things, no problem. There are also plenty who do not embrace that. And they are very disconcerted about that and becoming unhinged. And that's why all these groups, the neo-Nazis, the Klan, and alt-right and whatever else are stepping up their recruitment efforts, saying, hey, we're going to take our country back. We're going to build that wall. We're going to get rid of illegal immigration, on and on and on. Well, when they say illegal immigration, it's not illegals from Canada or the UK. You understand? It's from South America, Mexico, West Africa. All right. So what's happening is this. When people go and join those groups to take our country back and nothing happens, they get frustrated and they say, well, if the Klan can't do it or the Nazis can't do it, I'll do it myself. And that's when they walk into a black church by themselves, boom, 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 or into a synagogue, boom, 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 or El Paso, Texas, boom, 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 right? And these are called lone wolves. We have intelligence agencies that infiltrate these groups and gather intelligence and thwart some of these efforts. However, no matter what kind of intelligence agency you have, you cannot infiltrate a lone wolf.
Right.
And as we get closer and closer to 2042, unfortunately, we're going to see more and more lone wolves.
We're down to just a couple of minutes, and I want to end on a positive note. And because what you're talking about, the numbers speak for themselves. Those are facts, and you can see the trends of what you're talking about in terms of the rise of nationalist groups and so on. And I might add, no one talks about the Canadian border where the 9/11 terrorists actually came through.
Exactly.
It is much more porous
Right.
than the southern border, but that's another topic for another day. What can we as people of goodwill do in view of these dynamics?
And on a positive note,
Yes.
it's being done right here, right now at this table.
Good.
By you. People like you putting this out there and allowing the general public to be informed, because this is a topic that was shunned for the longest time. Oh, we don't want to talk about that kind of stuff. Keep it in the closet. Keep it under, it's shameful or whatever, or they're in denial. But putting out that information, educating the American public as to what to expect, what's happening, how to avoid this. If you see something, say something. You hear something, report it. So,
And it really begins person by person.
Yes.
Just like what exactly you've done with the members of the KKK on occasion. Getting to know, talking, they're getting to know you.
Know your neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. This is John Chowning with Daryl Davis. Daryl, thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I look forward to reading and hearing more from you, and thank you for coming to Campbellsville.
Thank you for having me.
Keep up the great work. John Chowning with Daryl Davis with a positive message of getting to know people and communicating with other people. Thank you, and God bless you.